What's their biggest concern right now if you're the Harris team?
Republicans do have an advantage in early vote numbers. When the early vote come in, it's going to look a little bit different than 2020, and that's scary.
So that is very interesting. Jim Messina with his take on the early vote so far. A couple things here we want to look back, all right? You've got a candidate on the ballot for the third time at the national level. So what does the end vote look like? Does it look like 2016 where Trump squeaked out a win here over Hillary Clinton? He swept the blue wall, made it red, Southeast red as well. Or does this election look more like 4 years ago, okay? Here's Biden squeaking out a win over Donald Trump, okay? What did he do? He flipped that red wall, made it blue yet again, then a little bit of blue down here as well.
It's funny because if you look at those polls, if you look at not the polls, but the actual results from 2016 versus 2020, a lot more people got involved in 2020 versus 2016. Both candidates had significantly more votes, but Biden somehow had 80 million votes versus the 60-something million votes for Hillary Clinton. Now, that can be attributed to a couple of things. Either 20 million more Democrats decided to come out for Hillary Clinton, because again, you got to remember, Trump had 60-something million votes too, and then he had 74 million votes in 2020. Either 20 million people came back out and said, we just really, really like Biden, or they got their U.S. citizenship or something like that, or people just felt more engaged for that 2020 election, which I believe that it's going to be a record turnout for 2024 for this election, especially considering the early voting record and the fact that people are feeling engaged and they feeling anxious about this election. But let's continue to get into it.
Well, in the Southeast. Let's go to this right now because Madison was just talking about the early vote. This is what happened in 2020. You had just shy of 159 Americans voting, okay? So far, right now, okay, no pandemic, no COVID, no nothing. You're at 77 million, so you're just about half of the total that we expect in the end.
And that's the most interesting part about it. Like, maybe it was also the fact that a lot of people was home in 2020 for that election. I certainly voted for Trump in that election, and somehow, some way, he lost it. So he'll have to win for a third time in order to ultimately win the president of the United States of America. But I think that we're on the road to 100 million this time.
Those now there's a category of others, you know, sometimes they register as independents, etc. But based on party, based on the states and early voting that report by party registration, Democrats make up 41% and Republicans make up 39%. This is one of these things that Messina was talking about in the soundbite. And this is one of the things that I'll cruise on back over here and we'll bring in our guests here today. This is one of the things that Republicans like to see right now in the early voting. We'll see how that shakes out once we add them all up there, Dana.
All right. Well, Harold Ford Jr. and Trey Gowdy are here with us, so no one better
Morning,
than
gents.
to shake that out for us. So your thoughts about that and maybe the concerns that Messina has.
So good morning. Glad to be with you. Election Eve. Trey and I haven't been on the ballot. We understand how election eves feel for candidates across the country. I think you said it well over there at the board. I think it's important for people to realize early voting, what it means for a lot of places around the country, and it really battleground states are where we're most focused. As I think about the closing and the closing arguments, I think both have probably, Trey was saying in the green room, would have probably liked to do it a little differently. However, I think she has been a little more disciplined. I think in the last 3 or 4 days, she's been a little tighter in her message, more concise in her message. But as you look at the map here and where she's going to spend the night, where she's going to spend the day and perhaps the evening, it's Pennsylvania. Without Pennsylvania, Democrats can't win. And frankly, I don't think Republicans can win either without it. So this will be the focus today over the next 24 hours. And I got to tell you, this is like Christmas Eve for me. I'm excited.
I don't think she can win Pennsylvania. I think that that's definitely swinging Trump. Michigan, here where I'm at, is a little bit more of a swing state. She spent her entire weekend, well, most of her entire weekend here in Michigan and going to the different places because they know that they have to win Pennsylvania and they know that they have to win Michigan in order to become president of the United States of America. I don't think that Pennsylvania voters register with Kamala Harris, especially with her flip-flopping on fracking. Michigan is a little bit more up in the air, which disgusts me. Because they went for Trump in 2016, they swung for Biden in 2020. Obviously, they know they voted for Obama in 2008 and in 2012. There's a lot of people that voted for Obama just because all of their money was messed up. But I think that Michigan is ultimately also, and here's the key, the key demographic that people don't talk about is white folks. People are not considering white folks. They going for the black vote. They trying to appeal to Muslims and Arab Americans and stuff like that. They have not been speaking specifically to white people at all. And I think that that's going to really be the determining factor because they still the majority of the population. So it should be interesting.
Excited as I can
I
possibly
will
be.
say. Washington Post headline: Harris's team claims she's no longer the underdog, but Trump team scoffs. Don't know if that's true in the end, but what about Harold's thoughts there, Trey?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're Donald Trump, your closing argument should be twofold. Number one, you had 3 years to do whatever the next thing that comes out of your mouth is, and you didn't do it. And most Americans think our country's headed in the wrong direction. Instead, he spent the week explaining what someone else said at one of his rallies at Madison Square Garden. She, on the other hand, wants to be talking about turn the page. Joe Biden is not turning the page. He's the table of contents. He's the foreword to the book. And yet he uses the word garbage and she has to explain it. What I find fascinating about Pennsylvania is it's really a microcosm for the country. It's 2 urban centers with Texas in the middle. So who's going to win? It's no longer, I don't think, whatever the old political dynamic. It's now urban versus rural, and Pennsylvania, I think, proves that. Who can win, the cities or the rural area in between?
Here's something that is, I think that the Trump campaign would like to try to close on this one as well. They've been trying to define Harris for the last 100 days since she became the candidate. If you pull up call for number 3 here, these are the issues that Harris's team has declined to say whether she still supports. And it has everything from immigration and the Senate filibuster, the closing private for-profit prisons. She's called that morally wrong. She wants to install a climate envoy in every embassy around the world, et cetera. There's all of these things, Harold. And, you know, is that a reflection of the campaign being so truncated, so short, so she didn't have time to do that? Or does she not want people to know where she stands?
I don't know the answer to that, but I know this. If I were running against her, if I were Donald Trump, this is what I would have been talking about the entire time. I'm slightly surprised that President Trump is not closing at the border. I mean, I would have had the cameras there saying to the country, here's why I have to be president again to ensure that we get some reasonableness and sanity here. I think for President Trump, some of the undisciplined way he is closed has invited people or given people permission to think back about the things they didn't like about him 8 years ago. And the question is, do you want that in your living room? Do you want that in your dining room? Do you want that in your kitchen or your bedroom, wherever you consume television or media for that matter? And for her, I'm surprised that she didn't have to give a long-form interview. I'm surprised she didn't have to do more. I thought what she did with Brett, she did a good job. I would have done more if I were her. But we'll have an opportunity to say this.
I disagree. I think that what she did with Brett was absolutely disastrous. But I do believe that the Republicans could have done a better job of forcing her to address her issues with immigration, because that is the part that they failed at even worse than anything. 100%, I would address that. I think that the Democrats' main platform has been focused on reproductive rights, which is basically the removal of unwanted babies in a form of contraception, as a form of contraception. And I think that the Democrats, or I'm sorry, the Republicans have been largely focused on the economy and somewhat of immigration, but I would have really hit on immigration because everybody know that their pocketbooks is hurting. Y'all let me know what y'all think is going to happen. Y'all let me know if y'all anxious, if y'all excited, if you think it's going to be Trump, if you think it's going to be Kamala Harris. I'm personally rooting for Trump. I voted for Trump, and in an effort of transparency, I voted for Trump in 2020 also. I love you. I appreciate you. Y'all let me know what y'all thinking. I'm going to holler at y'all later. I'm looking forward to hearing y'all inside of the chat.